Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I have a build guide for you for Diablo 4. Today we are looking at the Barbarian. I gotta be real with you. Everybody seems to be running Whirlwind and Hammer of the Ancients, which are great builds, no doubt. But what I really wanted to do was punish my enemies for daring to attack me while also screaming at them and making them bleed their own blood. But lucky for me, Blizzard was on the same wavelength, as Thorns and Bleed synergized super well and led to this incredible build that not only kills enemies halfway across the screen for daring attack you, but also inflicts them with a medical condition called all of their blood has left their body. And as a bonus, it's even super easy to pilot. So enough intro and let's get to bleeding and screaming. This is my Diablo 4 Screaming Bloody Thorns Barbarian, now with 50% more edge for your levels 1 through 50. Like all my builds, I will drop a link to D4 builds in the description so you don't have to pause or rewatch the video if you don't want to. This build is focused around two core moves, Flay and Rend, which we then amplify with 3 shouts, which is literally all of the available shouts, and a flex slot, which I will make some suggestions for. Flay is a generator, and you'll only need 1 point in it, paired with the enhanced and combat upgrades. Flay deals low damage but high bleed, as well as proccing a vulnerable, but most importantly, combat Flay stacks up to 4 times for both damage reduction as well as thorns. Your goal is to keep this at 4 at all times. Rend is our only fury spender, and you'll want to try and slam that when your target is vulnerable because we're getting enhanced and violent. This will not only extend vulnerable, which is 20% more damage if you didn't know that, but Flay gets even more bonus damage if they're vulnerable as well. Rend is the only skill we're going to max to 5 as it's our big puncher. For shouts, we want them all: Rallying Cry, Challenging Shout, and War Cry. Rallying Cry is so good, every barb pretty much uses it because of its movement speed, resource generation, and with enhanced it gets unstoppable. For our second, we want Strategic because we really want that Fortify, though you could take Tactical if you find yourself running out of fury. Challenging Shout is a staple to this build. It's basically a taunt that also gives massive damage reduction. We enhance it for a giant maximum life boost, as well as Strategic, which gives us even more thorns based on our life. As mentioned, you'll want to pop this whenever you're fighting big groups, and watch as all the range units hilariously fall over dead when they try to shoot you. War Cry is also a barb staple, as it gives damage to you and your allies. Enhancing it gives Berserking, and Mighty gives you a ton of Fortify, making you more durable. It's not as synergistic as some of the other skills, so you could technically swap it out for Iron Skin if you really wanted to, but I'm going all in on the screaming, so that's why it's here. And now we get to our flex slot. You have a lot of options here based on where you want to go, because basically everything in the next tier is good, and there's a good synergistic ultimate. I'll go over each very quickly with my reasoning. Rupture with Enhance and Fighters is basically a bleed payoff. If you're tired of waiting for bleed to tick down, Rupture basically eats it all at once and does the damage instantly, and will also heal you. Steel Grasp helps with this build's problem getting enemies close to us. With Enhanced, it also gives Vulnerable, and Fighters adds Berserking as a nice bonus. If you're into making enemies vulnerable, this one is good for you. Lastly, Wrath of the Berserker adds a ton of Berserk juice, and there are more than a couple of legendaries that will enhance your thorns while berserking, which could lead to some pretty fun synergies. For me, I landed on Steel Grasp most of the time because it has 2 charges and is paired with the hilariousness of pulling enemies to me and doing a massive rend. But the choice is still up to you. Now, let's move on to the passives. First off, let's talk about weapon technique. And like some of the skills, this time I think you have 2 options. You have Two-Handed Axe, which will increase your damage against vulnerable foes, which you will be doing a lot, or Two-Handed Sword, which converts some of your damage to bleeding damage, and at level 10 ramps that bleeding damage up significantly. Which you choose is entirely up to you, and early on just choose based on your drops and which one's higher level. I landed on Two-Handed Axe just because that vulnerable value is so great. For passives, the 2 core ones you definitely want to max are Outburst, which gives Scaling Thorns, and Tough as Nails, which gives even more thorns, as well as adding bleeding to your thorns, which is just hilarious to me. After that, you'll want to point in Hamstring to get cut to the bone, which further buffs bleeding combos with vulnerable. Hamstring's a 1-point wonder for us because it gives crowd control whenever anything bleeds, so you don't need any more points than 1. For ultimate, you absolutely need Gushing Wounds, as it multiplies your bleeding by a massive amount, with a chance for those bleeding to pop if you ever overpower them. After that, there's some good general value ones worth considering. Pit Fighter is always good on every barb, as is No Mercy. Exposed Vulnerability works if you got Death Blow, Rupture, or Steel Grasp. Heavy-Handed works great since we're two-handing everything and is a combo with Gushing Wounds. And 2 you definitely will want to consider early on is Booming Voice and particularly Raid Leader. I put a value point in Raid Leader early because it is a free heal and you're going to be shouting all of the time. Pressure Point's also a good one-hit wonder if you still need more vulnerable, and Thick Skin and Counter Offense can make you a lot tankier. Basically, this last batch is up to you. If you can't make a decision, feel free to use the guide. Point being, a lot of them synergize quite well. Now, before we get into the aspects, one quick thing. If this is your very first build, you're in luck because the easiest elixir to make is really good with this build. The Weak Iron Barb Elixir, which gives you a bunch of armor, thorns, and bonus XP for 30 minutes, uses plants around the starting area, and you can craft a ton of them. Always have an elixir effect on when you're playing Diablo 4, and this is a great one to start as the bonus thorns is very nice. There's tons of aspects that synergize well with this build, so I'm going to focus on 3 you can get early, and the rest of them are in the guide itself. The first one you 100% want is Slacking Aspect, which gives you a 30 to 50% chance to gain 20 Fury when you rend something that already has bleed on it, which is going to be everything forever. So yeah, free Fury all the time seems really great, and it's easily gettable in Mallwood in the Fractured Peaks, which is right here, and has to be put on a ring. The next one is Aspect of Anemia, which makes it so whenever you hit a bleeding enemy, you have a chance to stun them, which is also really great early on, because again, everything's going to be bleeding. You can get in the starting area in the core dungeon barracks on the map. And the last one you really want is Rapid Aspect, which increases your basic skills attack speed. Since we use Flame most of the time to build up Fury, this will massively improve your experience. It's a little out of the way in Dry Steps, the second/third area, but it's really close to the starting area, so you can make a little dive over to grab it should you wish. To start off, I highly suggest putting this on your two-handed sword or axe, as that will double its effect. And yeah, that is the build. There are a ton more aspects worth getting, particularly the Iron Blood aspect synergized as well, as it gives you damage reduction based on the number of bleeding enemies around you. But yeah, check the guide for a bunch of other ones to keep an eye out for. And while this build might not be as flashy as some of the more popular meta ones, I had a great time getting it to 50, and as someone who really enjoys the concept of both Thorns and Bleed, I found it was an absolute blast. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Are you playing Barb in Diablo 4? What are you running? Please let me know in the comments. And of course, if you have suggestions to change or improve the build, put them down there as well. Regardless, go out there, blast some My Chemical Romance, and enjoy screaming your head off with the Bloody Barbarian.